You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Welcome all and welcome back into the Insight NFL show. 14th of November, Friday, week 11 kicks off with the Jets and Patriots in a couple of hours, which we're keen to see Drake May absolutely dominate the scrubs there at the Jets. But Secko, this is the first time we're kind of bringing out the show. We normally do a bit of a buy low, sell high, but with only 4 weeks to go of the regular season, we really need to start preparing for the playoffs that run home, preparing to make it into the playoffs as we're a little bit lagging behind in our win-loss in terms of our league. So this show will be going through our must-make moves to either help get you through these final 4 weeks of regular season and hopefully into the playoffs, or if you're sitting pretty in a good spot and you're shooing for the playoffs, moves to help you elevate and hopefully take home the gold when it's all said and done after week 17. So how are you feeling about this one? It's a little bit different, but I think we'll be able to add some really good value to the listeners here.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Trade deadline is just right around the corner. A lot of leagues this week, if not next week. So it's time to make those last moves to get your team sorted and hopefully maximize some of the guys who you've hit on and turn them into studs. And that's what we're going to try and pick you through some sort of lesser or more achievable guys, we'll call them, that you'll be able to trade for as soon as today, tomorrow, and Sunday to maximize your rosters. And these are the guys going to kill it down the stretch, be it next few weeks or deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, and a good point you're making. We're trying to dive a little bit deeper with these guys that are a bit below the surface. You know, of course, we can go out there and say, oh, you know, you need Devon Achane, you need too bad there. You know, you need the studs, you need Bijan, you need CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, but it's just so hard to acquire those guys. If you don't have them already, trying to get a deal done, it just isn't quite achievable. So these guys here, you should be able to make some moves and they should be able to help you out. And I'll kick us off, Secko, with the quarterback position. My move to make here, and just to preface, it isn't a sexy pick. It's not one that will help you in weeks 15 through to 17 in that playoffs. But these next 4 weeks, if you are struggling at that quarterback position, I know in one of my leagues I've got Bryce Young. I would much rather have Jacoby Brissett for that next 4 week stretch. For the Cardinals, there's been a switch at quarterback. Kyler Murray, it's said that he's dealing with that injury. He's been placed on IR. I think it's been a soft benching. I don't think he'll play another game for the Cardinals there. And Brissett, since getting the nod in week 6, he's looked super efficient. He's thrown for 250 yards in each of the last 4 games. Even better, they've also had their bye, so you're going to have him for the remainder of the season. He's thrown 2 touchdowns in each game. He's had at least 19 fantasy points as well in those games, which is, again, it doesn't win you the week, but it definitely helps out your lineup. Like if you get, I know for me, Bryce Young, he's scored 2 points in each week of the last 2. It has just absolutely nuked my matchup. So if you can switch him, get Jacoby Brissett in, make a move to bring him in there, it will definitely help you get through the next 4 weeks. And why I think he'll do that, the matchups that they have is just so juicy for quarterbacks. Starting off with San Fran this week, San Fran have just been so decimated by injuries on their defensive line there. Probably their top 5 guys are all out for the year with injury. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa. Joe Bosa plays for the Bills. They've missed their also first-round pick. Michael Williams, that big defensive edge. So, again, they're just decimated there, and Jacoby Brissett will be able to get the job done against these guys. Divisional game, same thing. Very surprised if he doesn't throw for 2 touchdowns and at least 200 yards in this one. The pace of play from each side of the ball, they love to get as many players in as they can. And also Jacksonville after that in week 12, they're allowing the 5th most points to opposing quarterbacks. Tampa Bay in week 13 could be a shootout potential between those ones. The only game that I am worried about is the Rams in week 14, but it is a divisional matchup and it can get a little bit funky in there. So I think Jacoby Brissett, very achievable. Probably throw out a couple of bench guys to acquire him. A lot of teams probably have him as their third string quarterback anyhow. So again, Jacoby Brissett, bringing him in now. If you are struggling, still trying to get into the playoffs and solidify your spot, I definitely think Jacoby Brissett can get you there to hopefully put you in a position to take yourself to the promised land in your fantasy lineups.
Love that. It's deep pool, but yeah, you've laid it out, that those matchups. Yeah, a lot of those matchups are positives, but he's actually performed better than I thought. And all I've known him as is good for Trey McBride, and it's obviously something in that because he's got a he scores some scoring stats as well to do that. My tight end, sorry, my quarterback is in a similar sort of vein, not someone you think of as you'd want to have. This guy will be available on a lot of waiver wires in one QB leagues. Um, he's been dropped a lot. He's had some really bad games, and it's Tua Tagovailoa. It sounds crazy, but you got to hear me out here for a little bit. It's very, very different vibes than it was even 2 weeks ago in Miami. McDaniel looks like he's going to be keeping his job. Tua's looking a lot more confident. And, you know, reality is we live in a different sort of world than we did 2 weeks ago, when literally the whole thing was about to implode on itself. You know, last week they beat the Bills. They had a bad game against Baltimore, and they smashed the Falcons the week before that. So I think things are going to get better. They've got an absolute preem run, and that's the reason why I like them so much. They've got Washington this week, which is fantastic. Now, you do have a bye the week after that. So this is obviously a run. And that actually, mate, if your trade deadline is until the end of next week, that'll help you a lot because he's going on bye. You'll be able to trade for him, or you may even be able to pick him off waivers because people will be dropping him as he goes into a bye. But if not, he'll be very cheap to acquire. After the bye, New Orleans, New York Jets, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati is the next four. That run of 5 teams probably doesn't get any better. We're speaking about Lamar's playing a lot of the same teams. Obviously, a lot better player than Tua. You can't really acquire Lamar for the same cost as what you can get Tua on your team. So this guy can get you deep into the playoffs with that run. But he's definitely going. If you've been streaming and you've got Bo Nix, for example, I would pick up Tua and start Tua over Bo Nix in a heartbeat. If you had Jackson Dart as your starting guy, picking up Tua, playing him this week, see what happens next week. He's on a bye. Week after, New Orleans, Jets, maybe just playing the matchups. Then Dart has a bye. Perfect little 1-2 with Jackson Dart if you got him. So Tua sounds crazy, potentially not as crazy as it sounds. Um, Final note is they have 4 of the next 6 games at home, which is considerably better under the sunny skies of Miami than he is in in the cold snow covered fields up in Buffalo or somewhere up north.
I love that, Secco. Yeah, that you're touching on his home schedules back into the year. We've seen last year, yeah, he absolutely hates the cold. He's a bit of a house cat. So, yeah, love that from Tua. And I'll definitely be looking to make some trades for him in our week 12, like you said, while he's on bye, because it will be that much easier to get the deal done, especially if you are sitting pretty for at least one more week. Running backs, my running back here, straight from the top, Aaron Jones for the Minnesota Vikings. And what makes Aaron Jones very acquirable in a trade? Looking at it from paper, people might look at, his overall score, his overall current ranking as a running back 46 on the year, thanks to him missing a handful of games to start things off. Since coming back, I mean, Jordan Mason, there was kind of talks that it's a split backfield. Jordan Mason's going to be the touchdown guy. He's going to be the hammer of this offense. Jordan Mason is nothing in my eyes compared to Aaron Jones. Like it's clear Aaron Jones is levels ahead of Jordan Mason. He's had a season high 71% of the snaps last week against Baltimore. He's involved in the receiving game, which we love. JJ Wetsup McCarthy has been very stinky and extra wet over the last couple of weeks as well. So I think head coach KOC, he's going to want to be leaning on Aaron Jones a bit more, lining up a few more easy checkdowns for JJ, which is going to help Aaron Jones, especially in those PPR formats. And I think, yeah, it's just an older running back, age 30. People might get a little bit, cautious this part of the year. He might break down, but in my eyes, he's fit, he's healthy, he's missed his time for the year. I think it's going to be green skies or blue skies ahead for Aaron Jones. And why I love this so much, we do touch on the schedules a lot. They aren't everything, but they really do help when it comes to these playoffs and these matchups that you really desperately need down the home stretch. He's got Chicago this week. He went for 14.2 points against Chicago in week 1. Again, you're pretty happy with that as probably a running back 2 or even a flex play. it does get a bit murkier in week 12 and week 13. He's got Green Bay and Seattle. I still don't think he doesn't do too bad against Green Bay. Back in Lambeau, we know he played for Green Bay all those years. That little revenge game narrative always plays a little part, I feel like. But if you can get ahead past those week 12 and week 13 games, really opens up phenomenally down the stretch. Washington in week 14, they're decimated. Dallas, one of the best matchups all year for any position. The Giants, same thing. They've been very leaky against the run. Detroit in week 17 does get a little bit tougher, but it is a divisional matchup. He is involved heavily in that receiving game, which will help boost him up as well to have a good weekend. I think he can score a touchdown from anywhere. Aaron Jones, even old man, he does have some nice burst to him. So I think Aaron Jones, trade for him while you can. Very acquirable. If you do need to spin a little yarn, he's still technically splitting the backfield with Jordan Mason. That might sway managers to get rid of him. But I think in my eyes, it's just so clear that Aaron Jones is the clear number one running back for the Vikings.
Yeah, 100%. I was a big Mason guy in the preseason, but since Jones has been back, he's proven he's just gone straight past him. So love that. My running back is a guy we've spoken about in the last night's pod. Spoken about him a couple of times this week. It's Breece Hall of the New York Jets, and this is down to the fact that I think this is a bit of a conviction sort of play that I've made up in my head probably, but their offense is so horrible, but Breece is so good. He's paying for a big payday next year, and I think he's going to have the influence over his teammates to make sure that they do everything they can to maximize his value. It's weird. NFL clubs are weird places. People don't really want to see their mates go or their teammates go, but they're happy for them to get paid. And I think the vibe in that locker room is, if you're lucky enough to get out, good on you. We'll support you on that sort of thing. That's what Breece Hall said about all the guys that were traded, and he obviously wanted to be too. So I just think he's going to have a massive end of the year. Garrett Wilson is a massive reason for this. We're predicting yourself, Mull, and I, that he's probably going to sit for the whole year. 3 to 4 weeks at this stage of the year takes me through to week 14. I just think the season's over. They didn't want to trade him. They're not going to lose him. He's still under contract next year. They'll sit him down to get him ready for next year when things are brighter, hopefully for them. But also we'll hit on it again. It's a bit of a common theme. It's not always the case. You said it well, Mal. It's not always strength of schedule, but it does play a part when you're identifying these guys. You can really go on a tear the back end of the season. And weeks 14 to 16, so last week of the regular season, first 2 weeks of the playoffs, which is when you really want your players to be maximized, get you to that championship. Anything can happen in that week 17. He's got Miami, Jacksonville, New Orleans Saints. That's for a running back who's the focal point of their offense. That's about as good as it gets because they can be beaten on the ground, they can be beaten through the air as well. So I think Breece Hall weeks 14 to 16, RB1 numbers every week. He's a guy who can, if you can acquire him, I still think you can still do it for a third receiver and a sort of flex worthy running back. Should be able to get it done. If the owner has sort of had him all year as well, they've had to ride the bumps a bit with Breece, and now they're sort of seeing that it's all going to shit in New York. Or you can get him, and you can plug him in and ride him all the way through to championship week.
I'm with you here on this one too. Secko, I'll be trying to send out a whole heap of trades for Breece Hall. Yeah, that Garrett Wilson impact, and you said it. We're both predicting him to miss the rest of the year. A lot of other managers might not think that, so they might not be as high on Breece Hall, but he is this offense. I think, a focal point is probably underselling it to an extent because they really have nobody else. There's no receivers. There's Mason Taylor, doesn't really offer anything. Justin Fields is woeful. They're probably going to get Tyrod back at some stage, which is going to lean more onto some pass catching work for Breece Hall. You saw in week 8 before the bye against Cincinnati, 31 points. You love to see it. And even up against Cleveland, a tough defense, he had 19 points thanks to a massive explosive play, a 42-yard catch for a touchdown for him. And that's what Breece Hall can do. He doesn't need a lot of work. to get it done, and definitely achievable. Because I know for me, I do not want any players on the Jets. I want to stay truly clear of that organisation. But Breece Hall, he's a different beast. He's a great talent. We pray and hope that he can find a new home for next year, but he'll be able to help us out down the stretch. Love that one, Secko. Wide receivers, and just to preface, this one is more so, you've got to act on it now and kind of sit on it, be a little bit patient. Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver for the San Fran 49ers. Now, Ricky, he's just been super injury prone. We know last year, very unfortunate dealing with that gunshot wound. That's just, you can't even put a word on that happening. But this year, he's been dealing with some soft tissue stuff, dealing with some knee injuries. He came out, start of the year, 3 weeks, 2 decent games, both in the double digits there against some pretty tough opponents as well. He is starting to return to practice. It's hard to take what Kyle Shanahan, the head coach there, says with a grain of salt with how he likes how he likes the players' chances to return. But it is trending in the right direction for Ricky Pearsall. I think you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks with him on the bench if you do bring him in, because again, these guys coming off of injuries, he hasn't played, since week 4. He needs to get more integrated into it. He needs to get up to game fitness in this. But if you can cash in now, get him while he's at probably his cheapest cost while you still can. I mean, they've got Arizona this week, Carolina, then Cleveland. Not great matchups before they head into the bye in week 14. So that's even another selling point. You can say, oh, he's got the bye yet to come. Let me take that off you. I'll take the one less game, because then in the playoffs, it opens up well and truly one of the probably best schedules for wide receivers that we have. Tennessee in week 15, Indy in week 16 in a dome, and Chicago in week 17 to finish it off at home in San Fran as well. So could be absolutely ballistic down the stretch. Brock Purdy as well hasn't really played that much this year. It's going to line up perfectly with him getting back under center, which I love for Pearsall. People might say, Brandon Ayuk is still expected to come back at some point. Not a care in the world for Brandon Ayuk. He's been coming back from that massive knee injury he sustained last year. It's going to probably take him at least 4 to 5 weeks, I think, to get up to game speed. But at that point, it's going to be Ricky Pearsall as the number 1 receiver there in San Fran. I just think at this price too, super achievable. But of course, you do need to have that higher win-loss record than a lot of your opponents, and probably in a comfier position to ride into the playoffs.
Big fan of that. I was a big Ricky guy, and I've kept him in a couple of spots. It's been a tough hold, and but yeah, there's brighter days ahead. But yeah, it's a great call. I think he was so good. All 4 weeks, he had 2 big games and 2 okay games, but he looked good. And so if Purdy's back, I think you're on a massive winner there. He could be a league winner, and coming in maybe in the last only the playoffs, and making his impact. So, big fan of that. My wide receiver, my must-make move at wide receiver is an actual big-time difference maker, who is almost borderline too big for this kind of segment, but I still think he's achievable in a trade, because the sentiment out there for every second person seems to be this guy isn't quite where I have him, and I'm going to make the case for Emeka Egbuka. We've spoken about him almost the entire year, going back to the preseason. Um, as I said, harder to get him than some of the others we've said. Definitely harder than Pearsall, but I think you can do it by selling the threat of Godwin and Evans. If he's on a team that already has some solid receivers, and is probably going to go to the playoffs, you could really hit hit hard the fact that by the time you get there, he's going to be third in line. If the person believes that, of course. I still think he's number 1 in line even when Evans is back, because we saw that when they're both on the field together. Egbuka was looking amazing. This guy's just great. Like it's different. You got to remember he almost missed that week when sort of I think it was week 8, week 7 or 8. He was almost out. He wasn't supposed to play, and then he played. you can pretty much write that game off because he was played limited snaps. He was mostly a decoy. They'd already lost Evans. They had no Godwin, so they just sort of play someone, and that's why he was forced to play there with a bad hammy. You can also throw out the game against New Orleans where Baker Mayfield threw for less than 150 yards. They didn't have to throw it at all game. They won. They beat the Saints 23-3. If you throw those two games out, Igbuka is averaging 109 yards and has had 3 touchdowns the last 4 games. That's sort of where I think, that's where he's going to be living in. He's going to be living in the high 90s average for the rest of the season. And if not a touchdown every week, it's going to be regular. He's getting hyper targeted. He's the only guy. Tez Johnson looks good because he has to be, because Baker Mayfield makes people look good, right? So Igbuka's just going to he's going to go on a tear. He gets Arizona, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Dolphins in championship week. If you've got Igbuka and you get into the playoffs, he's going to help you get to the playoffs with that the Cardinals Saints 2 weeks, and then the playoff schedule is going to just dominate for you. So hopefully you've got him. Other good thing, Tampa Bay have no bad weather games for the rest of the year. They play either down in sunny Florida, or they play indoors. So, um, and they're going to be wanting to clinch the division over that run, and they're going to want to try and go for seeding positions as well. They want to try and get a home playoff game. So, I just think they're going to be pumping it. He's very needed for Baker, and he's just a superstar. Who, if you've got him or can get him, he's going to be a potential top 8 receiver rest of the season.
He's such a stud, Emeka Egbuka. No pushback from me whatsoever, Secko. I've already got him in a lot of leagues, except the Creators League, where I don't think I'll be able to pry him away from your hands in that one. I mean, that week 17 up against Miami, in Miami, that could be his biggest score of the year, and it's in championship round if you're able to get to it. It was my guy for me at the start of the year. Absolutely love Egbuka. Yeah, definitely. I'd be looking to overpay if you had to. He's gonna take you to the promised land. That's for sure. Tight ends.
Send an offer, mate. Send me an offer. Feel free. Send me an offer when we're done with this, mate.
I'll see what I can do, but I'm not too optimistic we'll be able to get something done.
I can laugh. Just so I can laugh here.
I might have to do that. Tight ends.
All right.
Now, looking with tight ends, it was a bit hard to, kind of find a name that is going to be achievable. This guy is probably out on waivers still. If I could, just be very blank and target the matchups heavily, target a good player. Sam Laporta, I think, just sticks out like a sore thumb. His playoff run down the stretch is amazing. But if you are struggling at tight end, don't have a lot of assets, even a guy on waivers, he is on bye this week. Juwan Johnson for the New Orleans Saints. He looked really good at the start of the year. 2 games in a row, 15 points. He had 11 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets those first 3 weeks. Dropped off heavily thanks to Spencer Rattler kind of not performing as well as what he was at the start of the year. Taysom Hill coming back in. Rashid Shaheed getting healthy and taking that work away from him. Now Rashid Shaheed's gone. He's off to the Seahawks. Spencer Rattler's gone. They've got Tyler Shuck. And Tyler Shuck actually looks decent. He looks competent. He looks like a much better passer than Spencer Rattler. And we've seen an uptick in Juwan Johnson in the last couple of weeks with Tyler Shuck under center. Week 9 against the Rams, very tough matchup against that defense. With 3 for 31, he did salvage that with a score. And then up against Carolina, 4 for 92 and a touchdown. Can get a big play done. He is on bye this week, like I mentioned. So if you can kind of get past that bye period, it opens up down the stretch. Atlanta, Miami, Tampa Bay, Carolina, the Jets, and then Tennessee. All those matchups are pretty exploitable, and he is their number 2 weapon in that passing attack. The running game for the Saints as well in hand, which makes me lean more towards Juwan Johnson with a tight end pick here. Been very lackluster. Kamara's definitely taken a step back. They've lost Kendre Miller. They traded away pieces from their offensive line. I think it just lines up for the rest of the year. They're going to be playing from behind. Tyler Shuck is capable of throwing it. He can throw a long ball if he has to. And Juwan Johnson being that number 2 target there, I really like him down the stretch. So if you are caught in a pinch at tight end and you need a player to get you through past this week because he is on bye, Juwan Johnson, very, very achievable in a trade in my eyes.
And he has a phenomenal porn mustache. So if
He
nothing
does.
else, he wins in the mustache game.
Extra
Yeah,
points.
he looks like a guy straight out of extra points for that. Straight from a guy from a from a 70s football movie, which I love. All right, my guy, to wrap this up, my must make move at the tight end position, bit similar to yours, potentially or likely a guy you can get off waivers. And it's a bit of a play on what he can be over the next 7 weeks, as much as anything else. It's Isaiah Likely of the Baltimore Ravens. This guy should be on waivers in a lot of spots. As I said, he's very, very gettable. A lot of people will have dropped him or not had him at all, but it goes hand in hand. We've spoken a lot about Lamar Jackson's run home over the last week or two on across our podcast of the week. It, obviously the same run home applies for the tight end here, but Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots. Three worst teams against tight ends are the Cincinnati Bengals, the New England Patriots, and the New York Jets. He's got 4 of the last 5 matchups against the worst of the worst. If they played Dallas, it would be just unbelievable. Pittsburgh's the only sort of danger, and yet they've been beaten. They've been beaten in the passing game all year, and Lamar Jackson, he likes playing them. So that run is unbelievable. And obviously after that, they've got the Packers, which sounds really scary, but they're not amazing to tight ends. Well, they haven't been. That's a championship game, but you've got to get there first, and a big way to get there. You can obviously stream tight ends, anytime after that. But those 5 matchups are just absolute fire. Now, Mark Andrews does exist. I know I'm going to hear people sort of saying that to me. I just think the last 2 weeks has sort of shown their hand a little bit. More targets to Likely. It's 60 yards 2 weeks ago against a bad defense in Miami. That's only just coming back from injury as well. Now he's sort of fully integrated, fully back, getting more targets. Andrews still might get the occasional one here and there, and the red zone one occasionally. I'm here for Likely's upside to potentially have 5 catches and 70 yards. That's where I see him. The John Harbaugh comments in the preseason that he expects this guy to be a Pro Bowler this year makes me believe that he wants this guy to succeed, wants to get him on the field, wants to give him a lot of opportunities, wants to design plays for him. I just think it's a bit of a throw at the stumps. If you're streaming tight ends, if you haven't got one of the top 4 or 5 tight ends, Juwan Johnson's a great shout. But Isaiah Likely could be just a absolute freebie ticket. Chuck him on your bench. You can easily be playing him for 5 straight weeks over a bunch of guys, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, all these guys. This guy could be a difference maker. If he gets up to 70, 80% of the snaps, that's what you're looking for. I'm a guy to absolutely dominate.
Really love this one here, Secko, and even better, you might even need to trade for him. 12% rostered in leagues out there. He could just be, a little lottery ticket. He's just sitting out there on waivers right under your nose without even thinking about it. And just those 2 Cincinnati games that are coming up in week 13 and week 15, my God, he could just absolutely go ballistic. Even with Mark Andrews there, no, I absolutely love this one. Secko, that's I'm going to have to be diving through some waivers straight after this and seeing what teams need some tight end help and picking up Likely there for sure. But guys, that'll wrap this up. A must make moves edition to get you prepped and primed for the playoffs. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you were able to get some deals done for either of these guys in the comments. We absolutely love to hear it. And again, if you did miss our earlier shows this week, the links are in the description below. Closing thoughts, Secko. How do you feel about these ones as we progress? And I just can't believe it. Only 7 weeks of regular fantasy to go.
Absolutely. I'm pumped to see how these guys end up. We've got 8 guys here. It's similar to last night's Starts of the Week episode where we put our sort of prediction hat on. We put some takes out there, and this is a sort of longer term. This isn't 1 week and move on. So we get to track these guys throughout, see how they're going. But yeah, pretty pumped to catch up, weekly on the Thursday pod and sort of touch base on where Tua is and how Brissett's going and all that. So pumped. It's good to have these little episodes to put our thoughts out there, and I'm pumped to do future ones in a similar way.
There we have it. That'll do us here on the Inside NFL show. Smack that like button if you haven't already. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Best of luck in week 11. Make these moves now.
Bye.